Hello, everyone, and welcome to Elevating Your Life. Oh my gosh, it's going to be a great show. I am so excited to share with you just an amazing lady. We have with us today Darlene Corbett. She views herself as a lifelong learner, a pursuer of excellence, a work in progress, and a truth seeker. Serving others as a licensed psychotherapist has been her primary professional position for over 30 years. Now she includes author, writer, and speaker. Her wealth of experience in human behavior prompted Darlene to write her ideas on paper, which set the stage for her book, Stop Depriving the World of You. Darlene wrote her first novel, Visible, a woman's fiction about second chances. Fantastic book. She became the winner in the 2024 Story Trade Book Awards, Christian fiction, contemporary category. She plans on writing 2 more books in this series. Also, she's finishing a contemporary romance, the first in another series. Besides being an avid reader, Darlene loves animals, especially dogs, which you'll see in her novel. Also, she treasures learning another language, yoga, fitness, traveling, and connecting with her inner circle. Welcome, my awesome friend. Welcome.
Thank you. So good to be here, Paula. Thank you for having me.
I'm just thrilled. It just makes my day. Well,
Yeah,
would you like to share any more of your background and kind of what
sure.
got you to writing Visible? What triggered that?
Sure. Well, I've been in the field of mental health, human behavior since my early 20s. I went into private practice at 31, where I stayed, and I still am. I'm doing it virtually. I also got this voice in my a whisper, why don't you write? So in 2011, I started writing. I wrote an article about hypnosis. I'm also a hypnotherapist, which I don't do much of anymore, but I wrote this article. I was scared to death. I thought, are people gonna like this? It was for the social workers, and they published it. That gave me the courage to write more. I wrote more. I got invited to a few platforms to write for them, and then at the end of the maybe 2019, 2020, I feel like I was called to write fiction. And then I started and I realized how much I didn't know and how different it is from nonfiction. It really is like painting words on a canvas. So I needed to learn the craft. I ventured out and learned and learned. I participated in a couple of contests. One of them I did horrible in, and they were absolutely right. They gave me very good feedback. One of them said it was about the therapist. It was an early version of Visible. And they said, this therapist sounds arrogant. And someone said, would you read another chapter of this book? And they said, are you kidding? I can barely get through the first 5 pages. Woo! And I thought they're right though. So I rewrote it and I wrote it again. I ventured into another contest and I got in the 80s there. So I was very pleased. Then I rewrote some of the narrative that's in the book. So the book is, as you know, it takes place in a therapy office. Some of it parallels the protagonist, Rachel's journey of developing herself. But I was writing narrative instead of dialogue. Duh, I'm a therapist. We talk, correct? We listen and talk. So I changed that again, and thus my book was rebirthed. And finally, at this last probably manuscript, it was finally able to be published, and it is. So Visible, it's about Rachel, the 55-year-old widow therapist who runs a 10-week group for 5 very wounded but professionally successful millennials. Along the way, she realizes she has her own wounds, ventures out to a tango class, realizes that she could find love again, a second chance later in life.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Oh, and I can imagine with writing this, Darlene, because all the years you've spent serving and helping others as a therapist.
Yes.
So writing that, I mean, you had wisdom of what that's like and what you've experienced that just, someone in a different career wouldn't have. That
Yes.
made it unique.
Yes. It's interesting you say that because one of the things I really value is the characters. I understand human behavior. I don't want to say more than the average person because, but as a therapist who's dealt with human behavior a lot, and a lot of therapists become writers, not just nonfiction, but fiction because they do understand human behavior. So you want to make the characters compelling and nuanced, complicated because life is complicated. Nothing is easy. Everyone that appears to have charmed lives often don't. So it really gave me the pleasure of developing the characters from the recesses of my imagination. But the themes in the book are real. All the themes I've mentioned in there are real, presenting problems I've seen over time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And I can imagine, what that's been like to be in that kind of service all
Yeah.
these years.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
now what you can share with your book.
Yes.
Ah, so
Yeah.
would you say this is a book for a particular audience or pretty much for anyone to read?
It's interesting. A lot of the people in the writing world feel you should find a specific audience. So I would say there really are two. It's contemporary fiction, romantic women's fiction. So I believe it certainly is good for someone a little bit over 40, over 50 that are looking to see some inspiration that life can continue on later in life. Not that 50s is not, it's not that old. I'm in my 60s now, but it's also for young people to see that you can find love. It's difficult out there. I hear all about the dating world, the apps, how to meet someone, and I'm not saying any of that's bad. The apps, they're not. It's a lot of just kind of you know breezing through. Maybe that's the wrong word, but maybe weeding through the people that aren't right for you until you find that flower, that rose, that crowning glorious flower that works for you.
Yeah. And I would think, with the where we are now in the world and all the apps and the things online, that it's kind of cluttering too
Yes.
and can be a little confusing.
Yes. Because, if you think about it, growing up, you meet people, you get to know them, then you develop feelings. You meet on an app, you're meeting in a vacuum. Now, again, I've seen people that have been very successful, they give it some time, but you have to at least meet a little bit more than once. But meeting in a vacuum is not always easy. So, again, I think it's luck of the draw, being patient and recognizing that give someone a chance. I mean, if you absolutely do not find them appealing, fine. But my goodness, some people won't even meet for a cup of coffee. If they don't like the way they sound, they don't like the way they look, they insult people. Less is more. If you don't like something about somebody, just don't say anything or say thank you. I don't think we're quite the right fit. Something nice. You don't have to be, but people don't. They ghost them as they would, that quote, ghost, or they catfish them. All these different words I've used. And then there's a lot of deception because people can hide behind that mask online. They can pretend
Mhm.
there's someone and there's someone else. So that's scary
Yeah,
too.
that's true. And myself being the energy girl that I am, I
Yeah.
just believe when you meet one on one, you feel the energy of that person and you
Yes.
feel if there's a connection there and
Yes.
that can be so huge.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
And, in the book, I don't want to give it away, but some of the things that happen were unconventional. People meet and sometimes fall in love, but it's in real life, they do. People go, that doesn't really happen. Yes, it does. It's not common, but it has happened. I've heard stories over the years. We're relational. Therapists are relational. They're with their clients. A lot of my clients would be my friends if they weren't my clients. So it's very difficult to tease out sometimes. So I have heard stories where people fall in love. Hopefully it's not the therapist with the client, but that has happened too. And what they need to do though is move away from it because it is misuse of power. But you have clients that meet sometimes in these groups and they do fall for each other.
yes, yes. Tell us about the fantastic newsletter that you
Thank
offer to
you.
people.
Oh, I love it. So I have a new newsletter. Well, when I say new, since last year, I reincarnated my old newsletter. It's called Ageless Possibilities. It comes out once a month. And what I often offer, I have links to my book, Stop Depriving the World of You. I give a few chapters free. I also give like ideas. So, for example, I'll say, did you know who said this quote? And I list the quote, and then I say, scroll down and you'll see the answers. I try to do something different every newsletter. As I said, it comes out once a month. Last month, I did a little flash fiction, which is less than 1,000 word short story called Roberto and Juliana. It's about a modern day Romeo and Juliet with a happy ending. And then this month, I'm doing a Valentine's one. It's about it will come out maybe next week. So I love to just make it short. I like to make it brief. I like to make it pretty. And I want it so people can read and say, oh gosh, I don't have to read this. Because, and I don't mean to be in any way dismissive or insulting to others, but some people are very detailed in their newsletters, and I think less is more sometimes. So I write as little as, I write less and make it briefer, and so that they can take those bites and walk away.
Yeah. Oh, fun, fun.
Yes, yes.
Oh,
And
that's
people
amazing.
can go to my website and sign up for it.
Oh, please share your website with everyone.
Yeah. It's my name. It's www.darlenecorbett.com.
I love it. I love it.
Yes.
And Darlene, tell us about the upcoming books that are in the process.
Sure. So I started to write a sequel to this called Heard. There's visible, there's heard, and they'll be understood. And it's about Rachel's friends, the other therapist, very different. So the second one, Heard, I've kind of put it aside, which I'll tell you why in a moment, but that's about baby boomers in the group. This one had millennials. That has boomers. And the next one, I think it's going to be older adults, even older than the boomers. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but the book I'm working on now that I'm just about to submit to my publisher is called Mesmerized. And this is a contemporary romance. It's about a 28-year-old woman who helps her mother at a speed dating event. Her mother is a therapist turned matchmaker. She's a therapist turned storyteller. And she meets this man there. She's not participating. She's turned off by everyone. Meets this lovely man. They go out in Las Vegas and they come back to Boston and go to Fenway Park and Walden Pond. And then they really decide they're going to be together, not a long courtship. And then he goes away and her old fiance comes back. Her fiance returns and tells her a distorted story about her boyfriend. She leaves the boyfriend and goes back and she sees her folly and she has to win him back. And so I make it a modern day Scheherazade telling stories to woo somebody back. And
Wow.
that's what it's going to be. That's what it's about, right? Yeah.
So when you come up with a fiction and you're writing this story, do things just come to you, ideas you get, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to go that direction. I'm going to
Yeah.
have that happen.
Yes, I do. I'm very blessed so far. I look and get inspired and think about it. I can't remember how I thought about the modern day Scheherazade, but I thought I'm going to use that. We could because we all have stories, don't we? We all have stories. We're a story. So, but yes, so for example, the third book, Invisible, about the third therapist, I thought, who am I going to write it? Like, I've got the boomers in the second, I've got the millennials in the first. It's I'm in the ladies' room wiping my hands, washing my hands, wiping. I went, I know. I'll make it about elder adults or something, but something that's entertaining. It just came to me.
I love it. I
So I
love
think
it.
about things like when I was finished Visible, I was those characters, I felt like they're my friends because they're so vivid to me in my mind. So
Yeah.
that's, yeah, it's, I just look out sometimes. I keep, because I'm a hypnotherapist and a therapist, obviously, but I had read a story about people, a lot of people that became very successful in their craft. For example, Billy Joel, Paul McCartney, I think Billy Joel, Albert Einstein, Jack Nicklaus, they all had dreams that fermented these new ideas. Jack Nicklaus's golf swing, Paul McCartney, I think yesterday, Billy Joel, Mary Shelley, Frankenstein. It was probably a nightmare. Not a dream, right? But they got them from a dream. So I always say we need to listen because it's fleeting sometimes. Pay attention to your thoughts, pay attention to your dreams, pay attention to that something that might go right by and go, wait a minute, and write it down.
Wow. And I know for myself, when I wrote my Why Am I So Happy book, I literally sometimes was, at my office or driving in my car, and it would just
Yes,
come to me, something I want to talk about. And
yes,
I would stop and write it down.
yes,
Isn't it amazing how our
yes,
minds work? How, we can just get thoughts and ideas like that. And,
yes, yes. And so that's
wow.
what happens. Yeah. And
Oh,
sometimes I'll tell people, they say, I don't know what I'm going to do. It's the same thing. I say, write. Just start writing. That blank piece of paper, just write. You don't know what will come out, right? So,
yes, yes.
yeah,
And that is just so fun and so fascinating. I
yeah,
love it. And
yeah,
the different names of your novels. How
yes.
fun. What gave
It
you
was,
that idea? That's so fun and perfect. I love it.
yeah. So Sapphire, the woman with the beautiful eyes, that's how I got her.
Oh,
And
oh,
I pictured different, like I pictured a Cuban woman. So I pictured an Eva Mendes, the actress, with blue eyes. And then I was looking at hairstyles for men, and I came across Kit Harington. So I put him in as Matt in the Game of Thrones. I pictured a kind of an Ethiopian style Kerry Washington. And a woman I knew years ago that had a beautiful widow's peak with white hair. She was Ethiopian. So I and then I forget who Jason. I think kind of a combination. I'm thinking of one of those football players. They were brothers. They were bald, beautiful, big, and so I picture them. And then finally, Yardley, I pictured I think Nicole, a kind of a Kidman cross with Gillian Anderson.
how fun.
It was. It was.
Oh,
It,
wow. So, do you have any advice for anyone that's thinking, I think I want to write a fiction book?
yes.
What would
So,
you say to them?
so this is a couple things. First of all, there are no rules. So if someone says you have to do it this way, they're wrong because remember of Human Bondage, the book Somerset Maugham, they asked him, he goes, what are the rules to fiction? He said, these are the three rules. I don't know because there aren't any. So there are no absolute ways. Some will say you have to do it this way, you have to do it that way. And there's two groups of people. There's the plotters that outline, they're very big outliners, such as James Patterson, who, he's very prolific. He writes Jack and Jill. I can't even think of all his books. But then there's Stephen King, who writes from the seat of his pants. They call him a pant. That's what they call pantser. They just start writing. And so isn't the woman that writes the Outlander. She is a pantser, allegedly. I forget how to say her last name, Gabelandon. She writes from the seat of her pants. So the point is there are no absolutes. What some people want outline, many I would say I'm what you call a pantser, but a little bit of plotting. I know where the story is going to go. I don't know always know how I'm going to get there, but I know where it's going to go. The other thing, so if someone says you can't do it that way, you need to outline, they're wrong. So not to listen to all of that. But the other thing is learn, 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 though. There are certain things you need to learn as a writer. And the two most difficult things are show and tell and dialogue. Dialogue is us talking. It
Mhm.
moves the story. And that was what the critique I got in my book. One of my later versions is don't tell. Use dialogue. It moves it. And of course, as I said, I'm a therapist. I should know that, but I didn't. But I learned it. So dialogue moves the plot. The other thing is show and tell. So this is the biggest piece that I mean, I'm not that experienced compared to, there's so many people, but even the most experienced writers need to learn this. So instead of saying Paula had just looks beautiful, well, okay, you could say that. You could say Paula's hair falls beautifully over her face. She has those dark lashes and her smile expands like a flower blooming. You want to show. You're painting versus telling. So those are the things I would say. Learn your show and tell and learn your dialogue.
Yeah, I love that analogy.
Yes.
Show your painting. And I
Yes.
would think that would give such an experience to the reader.
Yes. Oh,
And
and one other thing,
take so
use
much.
all the senses. We have visual, we have hearing, we have smell, we have touch. Use your senses because that will immerse the reader also.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
Yes.
give me an example, please, of using your senses.
So, for example, I'm just finding this flash fiction now about it's a Valentine's Day story. I said, and one of the things, he wrapped his arms around his rib cage, with his protruding concave chest, so you feel it, and then the stale scent wafted by his nose. When I said this, the odor wafted by his nose of stale bodies. I can't remember exactly, but you want or the smell of her cologne curled beneath his nose. You want them to experience it. And so you use the senses. He could taste the ice cream. It was like rolled down his tongue, and he just tasted the coolness that rippled down his tongue as it moved towards his throat. I'm just throwing this out,
Yeah,
I'm not,
yeah.
but that's what you want to immerse the reader with.
I love it. I love it.
Yes. And that's
Oh,
what I had to learn. I had to learn all that. Yeah.
yeah. So, what would you say is your wish, your greatest desire for your readers
Yeah.
to get from reading your books?
I want them to get a sense of entertainment and escape. I want them to be inspired because even though it's their works of fiction, I always have well, I don't want to say sprinklings, showers of inspiration, that there's always an element of healing that you can work through a problem solving. So even though I'm writing a romance now, it's going to be a happy ending. You always meet very early on. Along the way, there is major conflict, and she has to earn her way back. She has to gain this man's trust. So I want people to be inspired that not to give up, that we don't always know how it turns out, but why not try and be inspired and recognize the instrument of hope is out there. You just have to keep pulling on it.
Yeah. And and I would assume that with your writings and having it be, working with others and other people experiencing things, that there are writers that were like, wow, I've felt that way.
Yes,
I'm
yes,
not alone. I've
that's
felt
right.
that way. I can move on from that. I would think it would inspire
Yes.
so many people with that.
That's what I want it to do. And as a matter of fact, one of my critiques, a few in the reviews, one of them said, there's themes here that, are not always easy. I try to be careful of how I frame. For example, there's abuse in the book Visible, but I frame it very carefully. And so, but I want people to see they're not alone. I base this on all the stories I've heard over the years. Again, the characters are totally fictionalized, but the themes are not. And so, yes, they can see that they're not alone.
Oh, and that can just a huge thing for
Yeah.
someone going through a challenge, I
Yeah.
believe.
Oh, thank you, most kind.
Yeah.
I hope so. I really believe I want to inspire people. I want them to see that they can have good again, even if they don't feel good now.
Yes, yes. When do you expect your next book to come out?
I don't know. I just spoke with the publisher. I'm submitting it to the editor, and we work together editing it. I have to ask him. I would think I hope by the end of the year. I'm hoping by the end of the year. So I need to check with him. I'm hoping. But yeah, but along the way, I'll have some stories in my newsletter. And yeah, so
And
I'm
they have
hoping.
visible that they can
Yeah, they
enjoy.
can have visible, right? That's
Oh,
right. But I'm
with
hoping I have to talk to him actually and see if we can get it done by the end of the year. Yeah, maybe before. My
how
birthday's in
exciting.
October. Maybe he'll give me a birthday.
Yeah, yes, I love it. How
Yeah.
exciting, Darlene.
Yes.
How exciting.
Yes.
With a few minutes left in the show,
Yes.
what last message do you want to share with everybody
Yeah.
today? What do you want us to think about as we
Yeah.
say goodbye today?
A lot of people feel it's over after a certain age. Some people have gotten married, have their children grow up, their grandchildren grow up. What's next? And my belief is that our life is like a book. It's a book with many chapters. Some are not so easy to get through. Those of us that have less books, if we've lived beyond, certain years, don't give up. So many people start new ventures in their 50s, in their 60s, in their 70s, in their 80s, in their 90s. Sometimes it's writing a book, sometimes it's painting. Don't give up. As long as we have life, we have the ability to pursue something new, new chapters. And until it's the end for us, why not?
Yes, yes. And that is a powerful statement. And yeah,
Yes,
no matter what our age is, we wake up every day, don't we, with beginning a new chapter.
that's right. Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Joy in the morning, right? I think, remember the book A Tree Grows in Brooklyn? She wrote this other book, Joy in the Morning, and it's true. We can wake up and say it's a new day.
Yes, a new day, a new chapter.
That's right.
And would you say that writing is something that has given you joy?
Yes. Yes. It's funny. I have a friend in Georgia. We talk every week, and she said, sometimes, Darlene, this is really hard, but what else would I do? She goes, I have to do this. I feel the same way. I call it the exhilarating, but at times excruciating process. I can't imagine not doing it. I'll never give it up.
Oh, that is so exciting. That is
Yes.
so exciting. And
Yes.
you're giving us, we have a whole series coming ahead, and
Yes.
oh my gosh.
Yes.
And I'm excited to sign up for your newsletter.
I would love it. I'm honored.
Yes, yes.
Oh, yes.
So much out there. Oh,
Yes.
Darlene, it just I can imagine, you've been such a person of service with all the people you've helped over the years. And now you're in a chapter where you're even expanding that.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. I am. And I feel very, very honored and privileged to be able to do both.
Oh, that is
Yeah.
amazing. That
Yeah.
is amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate having you on the show and you sharing all your words of wisdom. This has been fantastic.
Oh, well, it's been fantastic talking to you because you're fantastic also. So I
Oh,
really enjoyed our time.
thank you. And everyone, let's just enjoy today's beginning of a new chapter that we're going to write in our life and celebrate our uniqueness and our own beautiful qualities. I love it. I love it. Oh, thank you, everyone. Love, hugs, and blessings. Darlene, thank you.
Oh,
Love, hugs,
thank
and
you.
blessings.
Thank you. You too. You too.
Thank you, dear.